Good morning. We hope that you are super well. Today we are going to speak about darkpink, which is a threat actor, in that case an APT that is basically focused on the APAC region. And we have been somehow involved, both of us, in that case into its research and into its tracking as well. From our side and about who we are, my name is Priego and I work as a threat researcher at RSA. And I'm a big fan of cats, a coffee lover as well. I think most of you also are. And with me it's Paul.
Yeah, I'm Paul. I'm here as an independent threat researcher, but in my day-to-day job, I work in incident response for a major bank.
Awesome. Below you will find our social networks. You will have here our Twitter account or X or however you want to say it. And also some email addresses. So if you're shy, if you want to ask something, please reach us with a PM or whatever, and we'll reply. Okay, so first thing first, who is darkpink? Darkpink is an APT group which is active since at least the mid-2021, and is basically targeting the government, the military, and the private sector organizations in the Southeast Asia and Europe, with basically one objective, which is the cyber espionage. They are also known to use custom malware, fully created by their own, like the bot that we'll speak about them a few later, that is known as TelepowerBot or Kamikakabot. They appeared the first time in a blog post in the 2023, in a blog post that I was leading. In that case, I was discovering this APT in the 22. But to be fair, I have to mention also a Chinese researchers, in that case, these Hunting Labs, that they were tracking this group at the same time as me. So I have to mention them as well. And they named this APT with the name PSI-WC group. Okay. After this first blog post, it's about an APT, and APT is usually known as like the final boss, right? It's super trendy. It's super, marketing stuff. It goes very well in that case. So after that first blog post, a lot of news started to appear very, very quick. It went very viral, and it's something common, right? It's something that is very trendy, and everyone wants to speak about, and every researcher and company wants to get into it. So let's deep dive into their toolset in that case. That group is using Telegram as a command and control, and they use different info stealers in their operations, like, for example, this cookie, which is a .NET stealer. They use also a CTLR, which is another stealer within C++ in that case, or even they use a tool that is known as ZMSG, which basically is a tool for .NET exfiltration that targets the Zalo messenger in that case. Again, they use these bots, this TelepowerBot and this Kamikakabot that we will explain a bit later. But basically, they do the same, but they are written in different language, one in PowerShell and the other one in .NET. But they even use other things, like the Power exploit, get microphone audio, which basically they use this tool for recording the audio from the infected machines, or logins, and so on. They even use GitHub and TextBin as platform for delivery. In that case, they store different payloads inside, and they will drop from that platforms, the next stage payload to be executed, in that case, in the infected machine. Okay, now we have here GitHub is the GitHub that belongs to the APT at that time, this FEMOBA. And we can see their activity. In that case, in the 2021, we see that there's not much activity, but in the 22, we can see that they started to do a lot more things. And here we can see how it looked like at least that GitHub and the different payloads, all those files, all that txt.gifs are the payloads that are stored in this GitHub, and that will be dropped into the infected machine to being executed and do whatever they want in the end. This is another screenshot, in that case from another GitHub. this Peter Lili from the 2023, and we can see again a bit of activity. What is happening now in the 2024 and in the 2025? We have no specific evidence that they keep using GitHub or TextBin, so maybe they are shifting, maybe we didn't detect anything. We are still not sure, but we keep trying to track them, but it seems that they are not using, at least by now, this platform anymore. Okay, now about their kill chain. Everything, as most of the time, starts from a phishing email. In that case, a phishing email that will contain some storyline to trick the user. And with that story will contain a malicious issue file. And that malicious issue file will contain a triad of files that are the ones that we can see here. Will contain a decoy file, an executable file that is completely legitimate, and a DLL file. What the user will do is basically to execute that executable, that legitimate one, and from that executable will trigger by doing a DLL side loading a DLL. That DLL will basically open a decoy document that will keep this storyline as in the first phishing email to keep thinking, keep this story in the head of the victim that everything is fine and there's nothing malicious. And at the same time, it will perform persistence into the infected machine, in that case by using a registry key that we'll see in a few. And also it will execute that bot that we said before, that telepower bot or Kamikaka bot, that will be the central piece of their infection. And it will be the responsible to keep the interaction between with the threat actors, in that case, Darkpink. Why? Basically, with different commands that are implemented inside this bot. And in that case, Darkpink will be able to send specific commands that this bot, and from that bot will be able to drop next stage payload from GitHub or TextBin and drop and execute whatever they want. Okay, but who was it discovered, right? I mean, everyone likes to speak about the firewalls, about APTs, but how the hell they are discovered? No one speaks about this. Well, I can explain my history because it's mine. I don't know the other one, but at least, yes, my history. So for that, I will go through their TTPs. And for explaining that, I have to go back a bit. And going some years back, I was in charge of tracking different APTs. In that case, one of that APTs was Dark Halo, right? And when you are working on research and tracking different APTs, something very useful and common is to write and use different JAR rules. Basically, to try to match specific patterns, to try to match specific bytes, to be able to catch some behavior from that case, APT or thread, and then start to see even more things, right? So I created the JAR rule that you can see here, which basically you can follow different approaches. When you write a JAR rule for research, you can write a super specific JAR rule that is great, it's super cool, but only get specific bytes, specific patterns, then you will get like 0% positive, which is awesome also for production environments. But you can follow other kind of workflow. You can create a JAR rule, let's say more flexible, assuming that you will get even more false positives, but you will be able to maybe get more behavior and get some behavior that in the other case you are not able to, right? So this was my case. In this JAR rule, I was trying to get the initial access from this Dark Halo APT, which basically was using an ISO file containing a set of files that are an executable, a DLL, or whatever. So I started to use this rule, and I got this hit, an ISO file containing that three files, a PDF, an executable with that Word icon, and a DLL. That DLL contains the name msbcr100.dll, and when I received that hit, it was kind of tricky because that DLL name is very well known to be used by Chinese APTs. So at the time, I had a teammate that he was in charge of tracking different Chinese APTs, and I shared all this info with him. And he said that yes, that maybe for that name could be related about any specific Chinese APT. So it was very confusing for me, and it was like, what the hell is this, right? I'm trying to track that hello APT. I received something that may be related about some Chinese APT. So I don't know what is in the end. So I had only one thing that we can do. We have only one thing, which is reverse engineering this stuff. So I started to do it and reconstructing every part of the kill chain. About the initial access, it starts with spear phishing emails with, again, this malicious ISO file, and it will contain 3 documents, 3 files. A decoy document, a signed executable, and a malicious DLL, in that case, hidden. And here we can see some examples of these decoy documents, and we can start to spot very interesting things. That is basically how well done they are. We can see in the top title related with the Army of Philippines. We can see dates, we can see signatures, we can see below honor, patriotism, duty. We can see that they put a lot of effort on time trying to understand how they should look like to trick that users, that victims, and to get into it, right? Okay, before going on, I have to say that there's some variations that we will not explain because there's a lot of stuff around there. So I will just basically mention a couple of them about their TTPs. The first one is for the initial access, they also use a technique which is known as Microsoft Word template injection. Basically, is using a Word template injection to download the next step payload from GitHub. And the other one is that they also use they located the payload, the next stage payload, as XML encrypted file inside the decoy document. They will just go to that decoy file, grab these bytes, and decrypt and execute them. In the end, the same goal is completely the same, but they follow a different path, to stay undetected and be still hidden. Okay, about persistence. How do they achieve persistence in that case is quite tricky. They use the registry key that you can see here, and basically what it's doing is to create a file, a .abcd file, and will execute it. And you may ask, okay, what is an ABCD file, right? I mean, I don't know. And that's the tricky part. They also register with another registry key how the operating system should behave in order to execute an ABCD file. So they tell the operating system how to behave, and basically it tells to go to the second registry key, the ABCD1, that will contain the encrypted payload, which is the bot. And in the end, what we'll do is go to this encrypted bot, to the second registry key, to decrypt the bot and execute it. So in the end, it's basically when you open an ABCD file, what you are doing is to decrypting the bot and executing it in the infected machine. This technique is known as event-trigger execution change default file association, and it's not very well known, I think, but it's very good to keep it in mind, maybe for next threat actors or threats. Okay, about the bot. We said that there's a couple of different versions, the Kamikaze bot, which is written in .NET, and the Telepower bot, which is the same but written in PowerShell. You have here a screenshot about the .NET version and how it looked like. And about its functionality, this bot communicates through Telegram, as we said, and it will check continuously for new commands. It will be able to perform different system recon, like, for example, getting system info, like getting the installed software antivirus, or also getting information about the plugged-in USBs or not, even the network shares. It will be able also to exfiltrate different information, like browser credentials, like the last used files, or even for interesting files, like documents, PDFs, and so on. Or also able to do different lateral movement for example, through USBs or network shares. Okay, about exfiltration. Again, they use Telegram channel for exfiltration, but they use also cloud services like Dropbox or Webhook. But they used also different hard-coded email addresses, like the one that you can see here, just to send the specific file they wanted to exfiltrate and to attach them into that email in that case. About evasion, they do a lot of different techniques, but here we have some of them. They implement USC bypass, DL sideloading, payload obfuscation, file compression. The technique that we saw before, the 7-trigger execution change default file association technique. They implement custom malware by their own, a complete modular kill chain. They use these trusted services and binaries, or even this double file extension in that kind of Word document, the fake one. Okay, and now we arrive to the key registry keys. We said that this bot is able to connect to Telegram, right? To speak with, in that case, the threat actor, which is Darkpink. But there's no magic. The bot has to have any kind of config to be able to connect to Telegram. So what they do is basically to write this registry key, which is basically at the Telegram token and the Telegram chat ID. And is what it needs to connect to this Telegram channel to keep interacting with the threat actor. In that case, again, Darkpink. For sure, this already changed. I mean, it's not active anymore. You want to try to go inside, you will not be able to see anything. But at the time, is what I used to get into their operations and see what was behind and what was going on into that thread, right? So I use this information, in that case, this Telegram token and this chat ID to get into their Telegram operations. And this is a screenshot about a message that was inside. And I started to see things like admin users or domains related with armies. I started to do different scroll up and scroll down. And I saw things like government things, religion, military. And then I said, wow, wait. And my face was literally like this, right? Holy shit. I mean, it's not something random. So, in fact, key points that we can ensure that we are facing an APT in that case. Long-term and highly targeted attacks. They basically target also the government, the military, defense, and the critical industries. They focus on espionage. They implement, as we saw, custom malware and sophisticated TTPs. With all that points, I think that we can ensure that, in fact, this is an APT behind of this operation, and it's not a random script kiddie or something like that, right? Okay, now going with the Darkpink attacks, at least that's the ones that are known till today, we can see a couple of points in Belgium and Bosnia and Herzegovina, but the most part of the attacks are from the APAC region, in Philippines, in Singapore, in Malaysia, and around that. About the sector distribution, we can see that the worst part was for the governmental one, with 6 different attacks, the military with 3, non-profit with 2, development with 1, education with 1, and religion with 1. And now we arrive to the latest known target from Darkpink, which is the ASEAN. To be honest, I didn't know what was the ASEAN. I had to Google it. But it's the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And we were able to get into their latest Telegram channel that they are using to see what is inside, right? So we saw that they were trying to get into this ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting. And we saw interesting things, like some credentials that were being grabbed, like this ASEAN@gmail.com, means that they were compromised. within that node, because basically the ASEAN domain is not Gmail, the ASEAN domain is ASEAN. But it's true that at the time in the 2022, when I was discovering this APT, it was more easy to see what was true or what was not, because I was nearly alone into the operations, and now there are a lot of different companies, a lot of different researchers trying to get into the operations and trying to get even more info, right? So maybe could be some researcher or some company trying to play with them. We still don't know, as most of the things in life, you are not always 100% sure about everything. So it's what we can say. Here we have, again, the documents, the core documents that they use for the attack in the 24 against the ASEAN. And we can keep seeing that they spent a lot of time, a lot of effort trying to craft these documents very well done, with dates, with signatures, with a lot of information inside. There's another one. And now Paul will speak about very interesting things, about the Telegram bot API and even more things.
Yeah, so I'll go into detail now of how Telegram as a C2 actually works and how we as researchers can leverage that to actually get this information that Albert talked about earlier. So this API is basically used to communicate with Telegram bots that you can put into chat. So you can easily create a bot by chatting to a certain Telegram account, which is called botfather. And that will give you a bot token that you can then use to address this bot. You can then put this bot into your group chats. You can address this bot in one-to-one chats as well. And then you can use that to kind of control the chat in a bit. The format of the API is simply the domain, so api.telegram.org, followed by the bot token you were given, and then you specify the method as well as the parameters. So a couple of important methods that I want to just highlight are, for example, send message. So that's the one that's most often used to exfiltrate information. You specify a chat ID and the text that you want to send the message to, and then it will just send a message with that text to the specific Telegram chat. Another one is send document, which can be used to send files to a Telegram chat. And then the most important one for C2 methods, get updates. This retrieves all messages seen by the bot in every single channel they are a part of. So that's kind of how the threat actors achieve two-way communication. Basically, whenever someone sends like a command in a chat, this get updates call will retrieve that command, and then that can get executed by the implant on the infected machines. Here's an example of how this was implemented within Kamikakabot. So you can see here that they used the send document method to exfiltrate a zip file. The zip file contained browser information such as cookies and saved logins. Another one also from Kamikakabot is this, where you can see the get updates method being used to retrieve the commands from the operator's chat. And then the commands would be passed on to this code, which simply executes cmd.exe with the /c argument and then passes the results of that execution again back to the Telegram chat. Why is this method of C2 so popular currently? It's used by both nation state as well as e-crime groups. So a couple of e-crime families you might know, maybe like Agent Tesla uses Telegram as a C2 to exfiltrate victim data. The Matrix keylogger also uses it. It's quite common, mainly because it's very easy to set up. You can just create a chat, put the bot in there, and you control the malware through that chat. So you can imagine like you're in a car, you're just driving. You can basically control the infected machines just by typing messages in the Telegram chat, which is very easy. It's a lot harder to take down than, for example, domains or IPs, because Telegram doesn't like to work a lot with law enforcement. It's quite hard to get them to cooperate. And yeah, you can do both victim exfiltration as well as receive commands from these Telegram chats. So this is just the current landscape. Basically, everyone's using Telegram as a C2. It's very common right now, and there's no sign of it stopping anytime soon. So yeah, I'll talk a bit about Kamikakabot in detail. It's a .NET executable. It's the main payload of Darkpink. Basically, they would deliver it to every victim after they had opened that malicious ISO file. It would end up with an infection of Kamikakabot. It has a separate .NET Stealer module that exfiltrates the browser credential and browser cookies. And as mentioned before, it executes cmd.exe through get updates, and it sends the results back using send message. It also exfiltrates Edge, Firefox, and Chrome cookies using send document, which are then compressed into a zip file and sent out to the Telegram chat. It also has a series of special commands that are used to update the Telegram bot token in case they want to update it. So they have that recovery mechanism built into the malware as well. So this is a demonstration I wanted to show. On the left, you have an infected machine that's been infected with Kamikakabot. And on the right, you have an operator's Telegram chat. So you will see that once the victim logs in, using the win logon key in this case, the malware will be executed. And it will send a hello message back to the chat, which you can see on the right. This hello message just contains the infected machine's host name as well as the username. The operators can then use the chat to send commands to the victim machine. So in this case, they use the all keyword to address all infected devices, and then they use the ** command, which tells the infected devices to send a hello message back. This will take a bit to load, but then you will see that the infected device will send this message back, which we can then use to send further commands. So as you can see here, we can then copy that specific string, which contains the host name and the username of the infected device, and then specify, for example, ipconfig to get some network configuration data. Or we can execute whoami to get information about the user account. Or if you want to get, for example, some information about files on the infected machine for maybe further intelligence analysis, which was what they also did quite commonly, we can execute the dir command to get some information about files on the desktop, such as here. And then let's say we want to get a file from the desktop. We can, so I've prepared a command in this video. The command uses the send document method that I mentioned before to send this confidential.pdf to the Telegram chat. So you will see that it just shows up there. And we can simply open it within Telegram. That's kind of how the exfiltration works for Kamikakabot. So there it shows up, and then we can open it and view it. You can imagine this being an actual confidential document. In this case, it's just a threat advisory that I used. Now, in case we want to get further malware onto the infected machine, we can also do that just through Telegram, so there's no additional hosting needed. You can see this command here. Basically, this relies on the Telegram file API method. So if I scroll up, you can see this syncon.png image that I put into the chat. If I execute this command, the infected machine will use curl to retrieve this image and then open it on the infected device. You can imagine this being an actual executable, not an image. It's just here for demonstration purposes. So you can see here, yeah, it opens the image. But normally these threat actors would use actual executables, of course, to achieve further aims. And then the last thing I want to show is the 34 command. This is also hard-coded into Kamikakabot. What this does is this just retrieves the browser credential and the browser cookies from all infected devices. So we can see here it has the login data for Chrome and cookies as well. So I'll now quickly go into Thill, which is a tool I worked on. It's mainly used to extract Telegram messages, which is what I use a lot in this investigation, and it's very useful for threat researchers. All it needs is the bot token, and you basically provided the bot token. It will then create chat dumps for you, which are easily viewable HTML files. You can open these, and then you can see two examples on the right. So the one on the right is by a threat actor called Neonet, which I will go into detail a bit later. You can see that this threat actor also sent an image file, which the tool also simply extracts and displays in these HTML files. It also, it reconstructs the whole chat log basically together with sender, time and date, so everything that's important for timelining activity. So this is a demonstration of how Thill works. So you provided the bot token, as well as the start and end index. So in this case, this is 0 and 200. What this will do is it will extract the first 200 messages to a folder. Once this finishes, you will see that a folder is created, which you can then open up, and then it will have a summary.json file containing the summary of this extraction. So this contains information such as the username of the bot, as well as the user chats this bot was a part of. You can then further dive deeper into those user chats. You can open them up, the specific ones, and then there's another summary.json file which contains the person's first name and last name as well as username. And then if we go into the HTML folder, you can open up the chat log. So this is an example also from Darkpink, which is an actual chat log created. So you can see here that the operator was communicating with this Chandara device and sending the 1* command that we, as we saw earlier, will just send a hello message back. We can also use this tool to extract files. So image files and audio and video files are extracted automatically, but other file types aren't. So we can use the download file utility and specify the message index, and then that will be downloaded into a browsers.zip file for this example that we can then open up. And as you can see here, it's the browser data compressed file that has information about the cookies of the victim and saved login credentials. It's now available. It's kind of version 0.1, so you can access it. If you have any issues, please reach out to me. It's a bit finicky sometimes, but it works. It will get you a lot of information that you can use for your threat research. But yeah, just reach out to me. I've also done other threat research with this tool, which I will talk about in a minute. Yeah. I can't seem to go to the next slide. Not sure why it doesn't work. I don't have it here, unfortunately. But yeah, just for example, other APTs that use Telegram SC2 is Eurotrooper, which is based in Kazakhstan, which I'm doing some research on as well right now. And there's a couple other e-crime actors that quite commonly use it. Yeah, just click through quickly. Yeah, so it's now available. I want to quickly talk about two different methods you can use to extract Telegram messages. So the first one is the most known about one, which is forward message. This is built into the Telegram bot API, and it basically uses two different parameters, the from chat ID and the chat ID. So with the from chat ID, you specify the chat you want to get the messages from, and then you specify your chat ID. So you can imagine putting a operator's chat ID into the from chat ID variable, and then putting your own chat ID into the chat ID variable, which will then forward every single message that was sent in the operator's chat to your own chat. The issue with this is it's quite noisy. Basically, for every message you forward, there will be a chat log created. So it's quite easy by the operators to then detect this and possibly shut the bot down or do other ways to kind of conceal the activities in the future. Also, it only captures one single chat. So because you have to specify the operator's chat ID, you can only get that chat and not the other chats that might be used by that Telegram bot. And there's now a protect content variable within Telegram chats that you can set to true. And basically what this does is this will prevent any messages from being forwarded. So this kind of prevents this method from being useful for threat researchers. At the bottom, you can see one example of how you could implement this. So you can, this is simply a loop that just forwards every single message from 0 to 200 to your own chat ID that you can then view. The better method, and the one that's used by Telescout, is the get messages request. So this is built into the Telethon library, which is a Python library that basically allows you to create your own Telegram client, so it interacts directly with the Telegram protocol. And the way this works is you can create a client with the bot token, and then you can use this method to retrieve every single message seen by this bot. So it's very easy to do. It does not create message logs like the forward message method. So you will get all the messages in a single JSON dump, JSON logs, which you can then view. This also contains information such as sender, as well as if the message was being replied to or being forwarded into the chat. So a lot of interesting information you can work with. And this is what's being used by Telescout, by the way, to get all the messages. So this will also get messages from every single chat this bot was a part of, not just one chat that you specify with the chat ID. And then I think the most interesting part for this investigation, so I was tracking Darkpink and I was using the get updates method to receive the latest messages seen by their bot. And you can see on the top, the first message ID field. You will see at the end there's a language code, and there's also a first name and last name, Wang Toa, which is like the operator's name that we saw across multiple campaigns. But then there's also a language code. In the first one, it's English, but in the second one, it's Vietnamese, which is definitely an interesting fact, because this could have possibly happened because they might have used, for example, a phone and the laptop to both control the bot, and then possibly the phone could have been set to Vietnamese. That might have been an operator error. Of course, it's not enough to attribute it to Vietnam, but it's definitely, I think, an interesting finding that can be used in future research to help with attribution. And then I'll quickly go into other cases where I used Telescout to get some information about the operators and the victims. So the first one is Neonet, which is a Mexican threat actor. They have been mostly targeting Spanish-speaking banking customers. A couple of banks are mentioned there, such as BBVA, Santander, Deutsche Bank. They mostly targeted people in Europe and South America, such as Chile, Spain, Brazil, mostly that area. And the operation was relying on, most importantly, a online smishing as a service platform called AnchorX, which is actually still operational and is probably the biggest SMS phishing platform currently within Spanish e-crime. And they also used Android banking Trojans, which they also rented out to affiliates, and they used phishing panels, which I will show a couple of examples of. And over their 2-year campaign, they stole over 350,000 euros from victims. This is only the fraction we could observe. Like that, it's probably a lot higher because they did a lot of campaigns targeting different countries, different banks, and they did this over a number of years, so it might even be higher. So on the right, you see a example post of AnchorX. That's just how they advertised their service. So you can see here that they were advertising new routes targeting Germany, France, and Austria. And on the left, you see an example where they were demonstrating their service by targeting banks such as Santander and BBVA with a message saying, an unauthorized device has access to your account, please check. And then they would put the phishing link in there. And then once a victim would click on that phishing link and enter their credentials, this would also be sent to Telegram, which you can see on the right. So you can see that the victim entered the username, their passwords, their name, their telephone number, and then the threat actors would actually log into this account. You can see a screenshot of them talking about this. So the first person is saying, I will check this, and then they logged into the account. To then get the OTP tokens, which is often needed to approve transactions or purchases, they used these Android Trojans. So they used a couple of different ones. They were all themed in the same way. So you can see here a application called BBVA Security and ING Security as well. They were asking for permission to send and view SMS messages. And then the way this was implemented, again, was using the Telegram bot API method. So you can see the send message function here that was used to tell that the device was online. And then here you can see a chat log showing where they approved a purchase of 24,000 euros using this OTP code. The big mistake the operator made was that they used their own phone to do some stuff. So the screenshot on the left is a screenshot from the actual device where they were demonstrating the functionality of AnchorX. So you can see here that he sent himself a message from BBVA saying, "God, you are so beautiful. I don't know about you, but I don't only get messages from my bank saying that I'm beautiful, but maybe this person had a better relationship. I don't know." And then on the right, you see that they were testing the Trojan on a Android emulator, and they used their own residential IP address. And so we saw that IP address across multiple campaigns, multiple months, always the same ISP, the same network area. And it basically linked back to Mexico, and that's how they kind of exposed their origin. Now, the last example I'll go quickly into is Ducktail. It was discovered in June 2022 by WithSecure. It targets mostly Facebook ads accounts and business accounts. It's quite a popular info stealer. I think most of you probably heard about it. And it also uses exfiltration via Telegram bots. But importantly, it takes screenshots at certain times and also sends those screenshots to a Telegram chat. So basically, the big mistake that the operator here made was they infected their own device to test the info stealer. What that meant was that screenshots from the operator's device were sent to this Telegram chat, which we then used Telescout for to retrieve those screenshots. So the next couple of slides will all be screenshots from the operator's actual device. So here's the first example. They were in a Telegram chat with this person called Code, who sent them a couple of zip files with names such as commercial marketing manager role. That's basically how they distributed their Trojan. They were using LinkedIn to post fake job adverts and then send those zip files to the victims. Those zip files contained a couple of fake images, just decoy images, but also fake Word and PDF documents that were actually executables that contained the actual Ducktail payload. Once the Facebook ads accounts were compromised, they would then use those to launch their own ads campaign. So that's kind of how they monetized the compromised accounts. So you can see here they were launching a campaign from a victim's Facebook ads account, and they were advertising for their own shops. In this case, they were selling magic drawing pens. You might think that this is like a weird way to monetize it, but in the screenshot you can see that they actually sold 2 orders, one for $30 and one for $60, so that's $90. It's a good way to monetize these accounts. They were also playing League of Legends sometimes after their campaigns, which we also noticed. I will go a bit quicker through this part. And then, so this is the developer's actual machine. So you can see that they were using a C# sandbox to test their code. You can also see that they were using Stack Overflow to research stuff, in this case, they were researching how to take a screenshot on C#. And then this is the most important part. This is the actual source code of Ducktail. So you can see that the email addresses that they used to set as recovery email addresses of the compromised ads account. But the most important thing here is, in this screenshot, there is the actual name of the developer. I'll zoom in. You can see here the Duck here. As you remember before, that was the person that sent the compiled zip files. And most importantly, this came back again in a second occurrence where they showed the email plus the name plus the birth date. So that's how just valuable this tool is to get information about threat actors. This is just a sneak peek about research I was doing. So this is just a threat actor's browser history where they also infected their own device. If you can tell me which threat actor that is at the after party, the first person that tells me will get a free drink sponsored by me. Thank you, SynCon. We really enjoyed being here, and we're really thankful for having us.
Thank you.